So today, I would like to talk about balance, right? And not any kind of balance, but spiritual balance. So spiritual balance is your ability to be unmoved, to be in your center, despite of all of life's challenges. And spiritual balance is associated with the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is also an interesting one because it is in a central location, right? There are three chakras above it and three chakras below it. So it is definitely in the center. Spiritual balance is your ability to deal with opposition, difficulties, and challenges. And as you know, personal power does matter, but spiritual balance adds another layer, a different layer. Because when you have personal power, you get pressured, you're out of balance, you might react back, right? Your personal power is like a shield. It can help you to some degree. But if we reverse the story and say you're in perfect balance, you don't have as much personal power, just average. You can deal with a lot more. So it's very important that we find balance within ourselves. I always like to mention my story, right? You know that like I was always like, yeah, let's go back to the beginning. When I was a beginner, we got a teaching about balance. And I looked around in the room and I was like, and I asked my friends, who is this for? And then they all pointed the fingers at me. You, because you do too much. Right? And I was like, oh, that makes sense because it's not for any of you. You guys don't do nothing. I mean, not enough. That's what I thought. So that happened. And then what happened? And then other things happened too. So let's go back to spiritual balance. So spiritual balance is also very interesting, but if you heard about Tai Chi, it means Tai Chi. It actually means balance, balance of the universe. It is the center of all things. When I think about spiritual balance, it's like the eye of the hurricane. When you have spiritual balance, then you can do advanced meditation. Advanced meditation is, you know, you pick your favorite shopping mall, shopping center, you pick the hour when there are the most people. You go there, you sit down in the middle of the crowd on the ground, and you start meditating and you stop your thoughts, and it works. That is spiritual balance. You can call it advanced spiritual balance, right? And what was interesting, I heard from several advanced students, we all went on our journey of testing our advanced spiritual balance. My journey was 3 years ago. I went back to visit my mom and I slept in her living room, right? I was just like, I have no personal space, right? I'm exposed to, all her ups and downs. I have no, requests, nothing. And I'm just gonna sleep in the living room. And, I tested my balance and it was good. Like, when at like 11 p.m. or midnight, I wanted to go to sleep. I was like, I wanna fall asleep. And then she was like, I just need to watch one more episode of this soap opera because it's so exciting. And I told him, but mom, but there's nothing happening there. It's the same as yesterday. And I think cable TV changed so you can actually stop it and watch it the next day. You don't have to like you control the episodes. At least she had on that cable. That's what she had. And I'm like, mom, tomorrow. She's like, no, I have to. And so I watched it with her. I'm like, wow, there's nothing happening here. And I was like, it's okay. I'm just gonna take it and accept and go through this advanced challenge that I set up for myself. So, and I was like, okay, I'm okay with it, right? It's not easy, but it's doable. So spiritual balance is your ability to stay in your center, regardless of how hard life gets, basically, right? And your balance allows you to find happiness in all situations of life. Happiness, peace, and a quiet mind. Happiness while meditating, happiness while practicing, happiness while working, happiness while playing, in pleasure and pain, in sickness and health, in life and death. That's balance, right? But how do you do that? How can you be balanced in a world like this, right? You turn on the news or you just get a text message and you're like, oh my God, right? So maybe you don't read the news, right? But yeah, it sounds like a joke, right? Like to find balance in today's world. It sounds like a joke to me. So, but the world has always been like that, right? So we think that, okay, now it's better, or 100 years ago it was better because XYZ, but now it's worse because of XYZ. There are more people on the planet or whatever, right? Or you think that maybe in the Middle Ages or in the ancient Chinese civilization, it was a little different, less overpopulated planet, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which planet, which cosmos, which universe do you go to. Something is always going on. You always have a neighbor. There's always somebody on your case. Dogs have fleas. That doesn't change. That's always the same. And you have to deal with the problems that you have. And people have each other, right? World, there's always challenge to deal with, right? And spiritual balance will be your ability to deal with those difficulties. Remain happy, not to be hostile to your neighbor when they're being hostile to you and others, right? Not get caught up in the mundane things while everyone is caught up in them, right? And as I'm talking about this, it totally brings up this, it's kind of like a black belt mentality, right? In martial arts, the black belt mentality. Somebody can come at you on the street with a knife, like brawling, yelling, totally out of balance. But when you're a black belt, you can step out of the way and just let them go, right? You don't come back the same, and you don't allow that energy you don't allow yourself to pick up the same energy, right? You let it go and you come back with compassion. And if you're attacked, then maybe you do a defense also, right? That's what we do. We do street smart self-defense, which means defense and compassion in the unseen world. So how can we say it in other words, right? So in other words, spiritual balance is your ability to climb up the mountain and be in a world of light at all times, right? You go up and down, the world goes up and down, the stock market goes up and down, right? So if you follow anything, the news goes up and down. If you follow any of those things, especially if you are attached to it or you have expectations of how the world or other people should be, then you're gonna go with the up and the down, right? So a very important aspect, the requirement is we step back. We just take a step back and say, let me let go of my attachments. Let me let go of my expectations and just see how the world is, right? And the opposite, the exact opposite is the exact opposite, right? So the lack of spiritual balance is to get so worked up by life and trying to get everything so straight that you can climb up the spiritual mountain, but you actually never do, right? The lack of spiritual balance is, let's say you love running and you want to go on a run, but then you want to make it perfect. You're like, I have to do my work, then I have to clean my room, then I have to cook my dinner, then I have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? You have to do everything. And the lack of spiritual balance is by the time you get to run, you're so tired that you don't go on a run, right? So you miss the exercise and you miss the fun and joy that you gain from running, right? That's the lack of spiritual balance. So we want to pay attention how things go in our lives. Do we have the energy and the capacity to do the things that we need to do and do the things that we have to do and do the things that we love? Always remember, if you have your favorite activity, then schedule a time or don't schedule a time, but do your favorite activity. Enjoy it. Something that fulfills your spirit and makes you happy. So spiritual balance is the ability to get above it all, get above all the petty details of life. It's, I wouldn't use, it's not that it matters or it doesn't matter, right? But you don't get caught up in it. It's like when somebody honks the horn behind you, if you wanna swing a middle finger at them, or you wanna stop and like talk to them, right? Something is off there, right? We need to have that much of a balance so that we can let it go, let it slide, right? And also not create these situations. It took me many years. I think it was like a few years ago when I realized, oh, when I cut in front of other people, they get very angry. Of course, it's their own stress what comes out, but if I'm kind of like the cause of it that brings it to the surface, then I realize that I don't need to do that, right? So these days, I don't know, once a month, I miss the exit because I was like, wow, I think I can make it. But then I don't remember that a month ago or a year ago I could make it, but I was a jerk, right? That's how I made it, right? So I'm like, okay, now there's not enough space. It's not that my car doesn't fit. It's that if I go in there, then I would make the other person very upset because it's upsetting. So we don't want to do that. Or my favorite example, when was that? It was just like 3 weeks ago, I think. So I was driving on 280 north towards San Francisco, and somebody missed my car. By missing, I mean I put out the signal, I switched to the right lane, and then like I went the second to right lane, and then somebody started coming into the lane exactly where my car was, right? So I was just doing this. I just went back to the lane, luckily without crashing into anybody. Then I speeded up. I went in front of them and I said, hey, what was this? And then they got so upset that they were like tailgating me and like yelling at me for like 5 minutes, right? But they missed what happened before that, right? I was just like, hey, wait a second, what happened here? So one more thing that is important here, right, is like, what is the purpose of life, right? Which always has two answers, right? So the purpose of life is happiness, right? What else could it be? And when we have balance, then there is happiness. But also, the purpose of life is something that we choose. So, because life, what is even life, right? Life does not have a purpose. So, but by choosing a purpose, we learn in Buddhism that when you choose a purpose, you choose an outcome. Basically, your purpose becomes your intent, and your intent becomes the outcome immediately. So if you feel that the purpose of life is happiness, you're already setting yourself up for happiness. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're searching to find in life. If you think that the purpose of life is enlightenment, then you might actually find it one day. So it's very, very magical. Or if you think that the purpose of life is spiritual development, again, you're kind of like tuning your mind to it. So you're kind of like searching for it. So whatever you set as the purpose of life, that's what you will find. That's what you will experience. And often immediately. So always remember that. And spiritual balance is to choose happiness, to feel that the purpose of life is to live and love, right? But not necessarily to be loved, just to be happy, to be conscious, to be aware, and to love. Now, let's talk a little bit about yoga and Buddhism, right? Like from the perspective of yoga and Buddhism, how is spiritual balance, right? So in spiritual balance, there are simply ways of becoming one with the part of us, with the part of ourselves that is happy, right? Part of us can be happy at any given moment. Another part of us may be not so happy. But in yoga, in karma yoga, and in Buddhism, we find the parts, the good parts, like the book, at least some of you will know, like the book. JavaScript, the good parts, right? For 20 years, if you've been coding for 10 years, I only heard bad things about JavaScript, while I enjoyed developing JavaScript code tremendously because it's very, very flexible. While other developers always went out of balance because they're like, oh, here are the bad parts about it. But then there's this famous guy who wrote the book about it called JavaScript, the good parts. And he highlighted the best hacks, basically what you can do because the language is so flexible. So that's how we are with spiritual balance. How can you look at happiness? How can you look at the good parts in life? Find yourself that looks at the good part. There are parts of us that don't care. There are parts of us that are unhappy. There are parts that care, that parts of us that hate, and there are parts of us that love. So spiritual balance within your spiritual practice is finding the good parts, that you are happy, the parts that are happy, the parts that are compassionate towards yourself and others, the parts that love. Now, still related, but I want to talk about secret to living. That's how I call it, right? So some people found a secret to living, right? A secret to happiness, basically through the practice of esoteric yoga. That's how we call it. Esoteric means internal. So internal spiritual practices, meditation and spirituality, because these internal practices changed them completely, changed their state of mind, and they realized that they found more and more happiness, more and more peace, more and more stillness, more and more good things in their own mind and in their lives, right? And they figured out what works and what leads to happiness, and they figured out how to eliminate dissatisfaction, eliminate unhappiness, eliminate sadness over time, of course, right? But even in the moment, just decrease even every day, just decrease the time that they spent being unhappy and sad, right? And the secret, that's what we do, right? That's what we are learning also. So, and that's what's important about esoteric or internal spirituality, that you don't just do the external ceremonies, right? Just for the sake of the ceremony. We do that sometimes, right? Like bowing and offering things, offering offerings to gods and goddesses. That's also great, by the way. But we also do the inner practices. We really look at our mind and our heart and see what's not working, what's out of balance, what's unhappy, what's sad. And we work on those parts so that we can let them go. So, and these mystics, they figured out through inner practices how to go through profound inner transformation and growth and change themselves completely. And they also found one more secret, which is eternity is inside your mind. Everything is inside your mind, right? So basically, we talk about things and we're like, wow, there's this remote feeling, there is this remote thought or enlightenment or, stillness or bliss, right? And we talk about as something remote, but all of these are available in your mind, right? So the only question is, how do you get to eternity? So spiritual balance is the principle that allows you and allows your mind to be still so that you can connect to eternity and connect to the high aspects of eternity. Because you can't expect the world to settle down, everything to work out always, because it won't, right? Everything to be perfect in order for your meditation practice to be happy, right? To work, right? Or the neighbor's dog not to bark, right? No, the neighbor's dog's job is to bark. So, and it's their job to make your meditation better. So, if you're waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect meditation, the perfect day, there is no such thing, right? Actually, there is one. It is today and it is now. So, you are the perfect person. Today is the perfect day. This is the perfect meditation, which you're gonna do in 10 minutes. That's gonna be the perfect meditation. So already set your intent so that you meditate, that you go beyond all your problems, because it's a very powerful way to go beyond all your problems. So if you want something from life, from your life, then take action now, right? Stop procrastinating and wait for the perfect thing and step up your meditation. Step up your compassion game. Step up your mindfulness game. Step up your diet. Step up everything in your life that you can right here and right now. That will help you to be a different person, a completely different person. Make now the perfect moment, right? Because this moment is the perfect moment. But you have to do something, right? When you're waiting and procrastinating and you're projecting that something will happen in the future. But instead, get control of your mind and power up and do something new, do something powerful that you haven't done before. It's important to stop sitting around and take action. That's the problem. Everyone is waiting. They're waiting all the time, right? But you got to do things. And like karma yoga. Karma yoga, that's why these mystics became successful, because they figured out, they took action, right? Karma yoga is the yoga of action. And karma yoga is not a waiting game. It's a doing game, right? Nike figured it out. That's exactly the motto of Karma Yoga. Just do it now. It's about doing it today and not postponing it to tomorrow. And one more thing about balance, right? Is balance challenging? So my first answer is no. Finding balance is not challenging. I'm gonna ask again. Is finding balance challenging? It is extremely challenging, right? Because it's the most overlooked thing in today's world, right? It's something that people don't care about, right? They either go one way to the left, too much spirituality, and they ignore the physical, or they go for the career and nothing in spirit, right? None of them are balanced. Both of them are extremely out of balance. So since balance is so undervalued and overlooked, it's hard to find examples, other people who are in balance. But you need to figure it out for yourself, right? I'm just raising the flag that balance is very important, because balance also makes you much stronger. Because when you're balanced, you can take on a lot more and not get out of balance, right? But if you take on too much, then you're already out of. So you need to balance yourself so that you